Welcome to the Build Better Blueprint, the podcast where we discuss the foundations of real estate, entrepreneurship, and personal growth. Join Christian Cardamone as he shares insights, strategies, and stories that will empower you to level up your business, your lifestyle, and your impact. Let's build a better blueprint for success, starting now.
Hey, this is Christian Cardamone. Thanks for tuning in to the Build Better Blueprint. Today I've got a real treat for you. I got Mr. Andrew Freed. Andrew started as a project manager on the W-2 track. He experienced a paradigm shift inspired by Rich Dad, Poor Dad, prompting him to pursue financial freedom through real estate. Leveraging his Boston condo with the HELOC, he strategically acquired 10 properties over 2 years, including multifamily units and syndications, and employing creative financing methods. As of present, Andrew oversees a portfolio comprising of over 300 units with an additional 80 units under contract. Andrew emerged as a prominent figure in real estate, specializing in multifamily investments, house hacking, and syndication. Acknowledged as a distinguished figure in real estate investing, Andrew became the top contributor on Bigger Pockets and featured on podcasts such as Bigger Pockets Rookie and One Rental at a Time. Committed to community engagement, he regularly presents at real estate meetups, fostering connections and sharing expertise. Andrew's ultimate goal is traveling the world and empowering others to attain financial freedom through real estate investment. There you go, folks. There's Andrew Freed. How you doing, my man?
I am excited. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. It's my pleasure. I'm excited to chat with you. We were just talking offline. We missed each other at the Utah Go Abundance event, but next time we are in the same building, we'll definitely make it a point to connect for sure. Your bio is super impressive, dude, and I have no idea how old you are, and I don't want to age you or myself, but you look young and you got like some heavy duty experience and a massive portfolio. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of where you started, what led you to your current path, and how you got into the greatest industry in the world?
All good questions. So my path really starts going back to when I was a child. Growing up, I got taught, by society that, the correct path was getting a good education, getting your master's, getting a nice six-figure job, getting a swanky condo in a city. Like, if you did that, you made it, right? So I literally worked my ass off. Growing up, I had ADHD. I battled with that, and I finally got a hold of it and figured out how to utilize it as a superpower. In high school, then my grades started getting better. I started, getting good grades, got my bachelor's, ended up getting a job at the Broad Institute of MIT and Harvard as a project manager, making 6 figures. I, got a condo in Boston. I essentially made it, right? But, we all have that sinking feeling when we come home at the end of the day and we all just know we're meant for more. Is this really the life I wanted to live? And you're yeah, by all accounts, I made it, right? But after reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I came to the realization that yeah, maybe I have 6 months, maybe I have 12 months of reserves. But at the end of the day, I was paycheck to paycheck. And that scared the living crap out of me, to be honest with you, right? At that point, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and in there were little hints of real estate everywhere. Real estate, right? I'm like, oh, maybe there's something to this real estate thing. So at that point, I looked at my net worth, which was around $250,000. $1,000 of which was in this 1-bedroom condo I bought 5 years ago. I completely forgot about. It literally took me 10 years to save up $50,000. I'm like, at this rate, I am never going to escape this W-2 track. I am literally going to work for the rest of my life. And that scared the living crap out of it. So at that point, I ended up deciding to HELOC my 1-bedroom condo, which was during COVID, for $200,000. And I utilized that as a war chest to start buying multifamily in Worcester, Massachusetts, which is about 45 minutes west of Boston. From there, I house hacked properties. I house hacked 2 or 3 properties. I ended up joint venturing some 5 or 6 plexes. I literally leveraged everything I could through promissory notes, through borrowing against my 4K, through lines of credit, and I got up to about 30 units. And then at that point, I still had amazing deals come my way, and I didn't have any cash, so I figured out how to utilize OPM, other people's money. And from there, I went to 300 doors. So I did that all in a matter of 4 years.
Dude, that's amazing. I mean, just goes to show you how quick, 4 years ago, we're coming out of a pandemic and, and you're in the rat race. Then you read one book, you have the gumption and basically the balls to just go head first, all in. And now you're, 300 plus units. So bravo to you, man. Tell me this, dude. Everybody always defers back to Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I've read the Cliff Notes of it. What made you open up that book and read the first page? Because that seems to be like a revelation in so many people's investing career. It's always the first step, and I think it's amazing.
So like many people here, I very much during my 20s and into some of my early 30s, I escaped into video games, right? I could create the life that I wanted to live in this virtual box rather than the actual reality that I lived in. And while I was playing video games, I think somebody mentioned reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. And at that point, like during COVID, I literally ran out of vices. I ran out of movies to watch. I ran out of video games to play. I literally ran out of everything. I'm like, maybe I should actually try reading this book. And when I read this book, literally tears came flowing down my face because I literally was like, I literally followed the wrong path for 30 years. Like, what am I doing? And the amazing thing about Rich Dad Poor Dad, it just opens your eyes to, the hidden society, the hidden process of actually making money, which nobody ever teaches us, right? And it almost touched upon something that I knew intrinsically, but I couldn't voice.
Yeah, that's great, man. I think that's so powerful too. And I'm really happy for you because it clearly turned out well. And to stumble upon something like that really is a pivotal point in your life, that's a breakthrough moment, right?
Yeah, and I think the main thing that really teaches you in that book is like, rather than be a victim, like you're the owner of your story, right? And in that book, it literally teaches you, how to take ownership of every aspect of your life, right? And prior to that, I think I very much played victimhood. I'm like, why didn't I get that promotion? Why didn't I get that thing my coworker got? I compared myself to other people rather than blaming it on myself for not actually putting the work in to get the end result that I deserve.
Yeah, ownership is the biggest thing, man. You have to have agency, ownership over yourself. And the second, well, really, frankly, until you do that, I think you'll always be, you'll never be able to surpass a certain threshold. You have to break through that. I subscribe to that 100%. So, every person that's successful follows some sort of blueprint. Seems like this was whether the book served as a blueprint for you or at least as a catalyst. What were some of the key steps and habits or strategies that you employed that got you to 300 plus units from, in 4 short years?
Sure. So let me just be candid. Like, I never expected to get the 300 doors in 3-4 years. Like, my original goal was, 30 doors in 10 years by house hacking a 3-unit every single year. That was my initial goal.
Which is still commendable, right?
Yeah, that was my initial goal. But going through the process, what really opened my eyes and really allowed me to scale this level was really leaning into compound interest, right? Not only compound interest in the form of making money, but also compound interest in the form of creating knowledge and creating skills, right? So, I quickly understood, just like in any video game, I can level up my skill in some category. I can do the same just by reading books, listening to podcasts, learning from mentors, right? And I really leaned into that. Like, I must have listened to 600 podcasts on Bigger Pockets. At this point, I've read over 200 self-development books. Oh, and by the way, I found multiple mentors that have guided me through this process, right? So those are some key things that really helped me along the way. But I would say the one thing that really pushed me to limits that I didn't think was possible was utilizing, a morning routine like the Miracle Morning. Like, getting myself mentally straight with the Miracle Morning, the acronym SAVERS, S for silence or meditation, A for affirmations, B for visualization, E for exercising, R for reading, S for scribing. And I would do this every single morning. And this allowed me to live each day with intent, live each week with intent, and live each year with intent so I could actually create the reality that I thought I deserved.
That's amazing. It's funny, dude, because they say some of the most successful people in the world treat business like a game. And it sounds like you pretty much have, your love for video games has you gamify business, and when you make those correlations to just like leveling up, or instead of adding, new weapons or things to your quiver in the video game, it's podcast, it's books, it's knowledge, and you're compounding it and stacking it so that you're like fucking Mega Man, basically at the end of the day, ready to take out the boss.
Yeah, I'm soloing bosses by myself at this point. Yeah. And to your point, that was all just through constantly drilling in more skills, getting better, and knowing that there's just being curious, right? I think that's what Rich Dad Poor Dad really did to me, was just open my eyes to the power of self-development.
That's great, man. That's awesome. Kiyosaki needs to get like some royalties from, I would wager he's probably on 8 out of 10 podcasts that are real estate related as a reference point. So I think he's doing all right by himself anyway, but hopefully he's got a good agent tapping into that. So let me ask you this. Success doesn't come without setbacks, right? And so you've been on really a 4 or 5 year journey in the real estate game. Obviously, before that, in the W-2 world, you had success. But what was one of your biggest failures or hardest lessons, and how did you overcome it?
I think one of my hardest lessons in real estate was understanding that when it comes to real estate, when it comes to cash flow, it's so transient. And what I mean by that is, $2,000-$3,000 cash flow sounds great until, a tenant leaves, you got to turn a unit, until one of your heating units goes and you got to repair the heating unit, and, I came to the realization that, like, I thought I needed this X number to reach financial freedom in the form of cash flow. And I came to the realization that, like, I actually need 3 to 4X that, because there's so much uncertainty with cash flow that, you really have to double or triple down to really get that financial freedom number.
Yeah. Did you have a time where maybe because I know a lot of folks are there's so many different ways to invest in real estate, right? So a lot of folks choose a path like a lower barrier to entry. Let me grab like a $50,000, $60,000 Section 8 in like Cincinnati or something. It's easy. I can get creative financing or whatever. And then, I'm making $300 a month, and people are like, oh, if I just get like 100 of these things, I'm rich. But what they realize after the fact sometimes is that when the roof goes or the foundation goes or one AC unit goes or even a hot water heater, that's your cash flow for the year or for the next 1 to 3 years. So did you have a specific instance to where you're like, oh shit moment where that happened, or were you just kind of seeing it as you're amassing these doors saying, I have to have more reserves because I can see how quickly this can evaporate?
I saw it as I was amassing these doors. As I was amassing these doors, I was very equity rich and I was very cash poor, right? And, and that really fed into, me scaling, because, like, I wanted to leave my I wanted to go full-time into real estate, but I really held onto that W-2 as long as possible for that consistent money, for those benefits to be loanable from banks, right? So, I would just tell people, real estate and financial freedom is absolutely the goal, but there is value, and you can utilize your W as an actual tool to get you to that level. And I assure you, if I didn't hold on to my W-2 for as long as I did, I would not be in as good as a financial position as I am today. And, and I think, and to your point, I think you alluded to something really powerful in real estate, is people think in real estate, you make money off cash flow. You do not make money off cash flow. Cash flow is simply a defensive mechanism. You make money off the mortgage pay down. You make money off the appreciation or the forced appreciation, and you make money off of the tax benefits. Like last year, I think my effective tax rate was a 2 or 3%, right? So, like, that's honestly where I built a majority of my net worth, not in the cash flow, but in the other profit levers of real estate.
Yeah, and that's so important, man, that you highlight that, because those are two of the biggest misconceptions, I think, in real estate. So one is cash flow is going to make me rich and help me leave my W-2, when in reality, some of the biggest levers you can pull as a real estate investor are some of the tax benefits or the forced equity or the fact that rents go up and you have the mortgage pay down and just the appreciation over time. Those are some of the, especially in down markets or slow markets or sluggish, those levers can provide more value. And I think another highlight is, if you have the W-2, that's your main income generating source. So people get blinded by the light. I want to quit my job and just invest in real estate. But what they fail to realize is that invest is a long-term strategy. If they want to speculate in real estate, that's different. They can quit their job and speculate and hope that the market goes up and hope that all these things happen quickly. But that's not investing, that's speculating. And so they could do that in the stock market. They could do that in any other marketplace. But if you have a W-2, that's all going to help you qualify for more loans more effectively, get better rates, get better terms. You're going to continue to have money to feed yourself, keep a roof over your head. And it's also going to give you basically the mental bandwidth and security to where it's not going to turn into a situation where you have a couple bad months and now you've got to liquidate your property and get out of the game. So that's why I think there's so much attrition in the investment world, because people get in and ahead of their skis a lot faster than they think. It's a low barrier to entry, but the players that stay long-term kind of had the vision like you do. So I applaud you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely been a journey. Real estate, it's not easy, but it's fun. I enjoy every moment of it.
Oh, there's nothing better, dude. I love it. So here's a question for you. We're both in this GoBundance men's group. it's been amazing for me. I've been in just for maybe less than a year, but it's been an incredible experience. How important is coaching and mentorship been to you as far as, being part of a high level community? Where would you be today without it? You mentioned you've had a mentor, multiple mentors, real or by way of podcasts or books. Jump into that a little bit.
Absolutely. So I actually found my first mentor locally. This guy, John Bambachi, he already owned about 300 units at this point. He hosted meetups, real estate investing meetups all over Massachusetts. And, I really strived to be where he was at in a couple of years. And, I remember going to one of his online meetups and, he was mentioning like, I'm really trying to start a meetup in Worcester. If anybody knows any good venues, please let me know. And at that point, I already house hacked 2 properties in Worcester. That was my main market. I was living in Worcester. So I literally took the weekend to go to 5 different venues, take video, take pictures, get pricing, put it in a nice, sexy Google Drive, send it to him. And, his response was, I've been asking him this for 8 months. Nobody did this. Do you want to be our first guest speaker? And I'm like, fantastic. So I actually put the meetup together. I was the first guest speaker and I did such a good job. He asked me to actually host the meetup. And then that led into me getting my broker's license and being an agent underneath him. So, I provided him endless value in the form of increasing his brand by creating this meetup, in the form of becoming a broker on his team and giving him that value in the form of commissions, right? And I kept bringing him value and value. And then when I actually got something under contract or had any questions, obviously he would pick up my phone right away. I'm making the guy tens of thousands of dollars. So that's kind of how I kind of stuck my way into being his mentee. And I actually ended up partnering with him on a 69 unit portfolio in New Bedford, Massachusetts. And we partnered on multiple deals since. So that's how I found my mentor, was leading with value and really leaning into the concept of reciprocity. Like, if you do endless nice things for me, I'm going to want to help you. That's just human nature. Yeah. And I think people get blinded by thinking a mentor should just help them out of the goodness of their heart. Like, trust me, I try to be a good human, but ultimately I have a finite amount of time every day, right? I can't help everybody. I can only help a select few, but I choose to help others who help me, right? And, you could call that selfish. You can call it what it is. It's human nature. And if you understand that, that's the easiest way to find a mentor.
Yeah, 100%. And you have to, basically, there's 2 ways to get in front of the people that are doing the things you want to do. And you either pay to play, which is joining masterminds, joining groups, buying their time, literally, because like you said, they're busy and they could be the nicest people in the world, but they still only have a limited amount of time in the day. And so even if they want to help everybody, they can't. So one path, pay to play, pay to join their group, get in front of them. Or the other path is just try and associate, get proximity, and just come from contribution and just give and provide endless value to these people. Eventually you'll get on their radar, and then to a point where then they realize, shit, I can't live without this guy now. Or someone, he's brought me he's teed up these perfect 5-6 deals, and they recognize that. The people that are very successful always recognize that. And I think that's important, because you have to have a mentor, and choosing the right one, it can be a challenge. And sometimes you may think that they're, too big for you or beyond your reach, but just the fastest way to get noticed by them is to just continue to show up and interact and engage and then provide value to them, right?
Yeah. And then, to your point, pay to play. You and I are part of this GoBundance program. It costs a significant amount of money every year to be part of this organization. But, you get the value that you put into it. Like I paid, I think, over the course of 2-3 years, I may have paid $20,000 to $30,000 to this organization. I had a 5-minute conversation with one member that made me $250,000 over a year, right? So, people look at, this is costing me so much money, but people don't understand people don't correlate the benefits from being part of this organization. That one conversation paid for the annual fee 10 times over.
Yeah, it's definitely like you have to have that abundance mindset, and you have to be thinking bigger picture, longer term. It's about, and even if something doesn't happen in the first conversation, the first 6 months, even the first year or 2, they're fostered. That's because they're, in this case, I think they're genuine. So the guys that are in our group, definitely, you can see some folks that show up that just kind of want to just take, they kind of get pushed out quickly. The folks that show up and they just give, then you sit down and have a genuine conversation like you guys referenced, and then you have some amazing, nuggets come out of that pay for the program for the next 10 years, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. To your point, like, when, as you probably read The Go Giver, it's all about providing endless amount of value into the world, and financial and reputational capital will be returned one way or another. It's that simple.
Yeah,
That's
it is.
key to success.
Yep. It's a laws of nature. So you mentioned before, you're a big fan of the Miracle Morning. So I want to talk about your daily habits and your mindset. What are your non-negotiables and mindset shifts that help you stay at the top of your game? Because you're still, you're on a hockey stick trajectory here. You're growing very fast. What are you doing to maintain course and speed?
So I think self development is extremely important, and mental, and keeping mental stability is incredibly important for exponential growth. So every single morning I meditate for 10 minutes, and that really puts me in the right mindset where I don't just react, at first principles. I actually think about my reaction and I control it a little more. Doing journaling has been instrumental, like writing 3 things I'm grateful for so I could lead with gratitude, but also writing, 4, 5, 6 things that I could do today to get me closer to my 1-year, 5-year, 10-year goals. That's been instrumental, and then when it comes to, health, definitely, keeping the body in shape, because ultimately, like, you could be the richest person in the world, but if you don't have your health, you don't have anything, right? So those are definitely some things, but absolutely the meditation and the daily journaling has been instrumental to me actually living with intent rather than have the day live for me.
Yeah, that's good. Intention provides that clarity and it helps you avoid distractions, which is, we all fall victim to all the time. So speaking of that kind of daily, what are you working on right now? Where are you headed in the next couple of years? What's like your day to day? Are you doing brokerage with this team, or are you I know you're managing your current portfolio and also subsequently looking to add units on top of that? Walk us through that.
So my day-to-day looks like this. I own a property management company with my partner. We're 50-50 partners. We self-manage 200 doors, and we have a team of 12 people. So, it's kind of this, I very much act as a portfolio manager. I don't do the day-to-day, but I oversee all the projects and make sure they're going in accordance with the business plan. Simultaneously, I'm working through, our current acquisitions. Currently, we have about 50 or 60 units under contract. So I'm walking properties. I'm underwriting deals, I'm making offers, and I'm also an investor-focused broker. I have 8 agents underneath me, so I do a little bit of agent work, but most of my time is spent on ensuring our assets are performing in accordance with the business plan with the help of my team, simultaneously looking to grow my business in the form of adding units and completing flips. I think currently we have 4 or 5 flips going on, and we have about 40 or 50 buy and hold units under contract.
Okay, so you've got a couple different avenues that you're on right now, like buy and hold, fix and flip. Are you doing a signing, wholesaling? Are you doing just general, like slow? Like what kind of assets do you like to buy? It sounds like multifamily, but if you're doing fix and flips, are those single families?
So me and my partner primarily like to focus on multifamily. So even multifamily flips, because at the end of the day, we want an exit strategy. We want multiple exit strategies, right? So if this doesn't sell where we need it to sell, we can just clearly just throw a renter in there and refinance it, right? So we like to hedge our bets with multifamily. And from a buy and hold perspective, we buy value add multifamily. So we're looking for, on a price per unit basis, at a 20 to 30% discount with depressed rents. Because if we go through the process of increasing rents to market, combined with getting a discount on a per unit basis, we can create forced appreciation by utilizing the income approach, right? So when you get the 5+ unit properties, the value of the property is very much based on how much income it produces. So if we can focus on enhancing the income approach by increasing the revenue and lowering expenses, we can create forced appreciation, create equity out of thin air, and suck that out in the form of a cash out refinance. So
it's a beautiful process.
Yep. So that's pretty much our process in a nutshell. Is, we aim to find these, distressed assets, do our business plan within 1 to 3 years, do a cash flow refinance, give our investors back 50 to 100% of their capital, and just cash flow for the next cash flow refinance or sale 3 to 5 years down the road.
Nice. And so what are the cap rates at for like small multifamily right now? What's like a range in your market in Worcester?
So in Worcester, cap rates range between 6.5 to 8. We offer our investors an 8% preferred return, 50-50 split. So any deal we have to get, that means that the cash and cash return has to be of 8, or we make no money.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
We primarily look for assets post stabilization between a 9 to 12% cash on cash return. That's what we're aiming for.
Okay, so your spread is a couple points on top of what your preferred is.
Exactly.
And that's still, and then you guys do acquisition fees and management fees since you have that in-house. So that's how you're able to kind of make money on the way alongside your investors.
We typically act as the buyer's agent. And that was that one tip I told you that made me $250,000 was simply just building in a buyer's commission in our offers. I thought in these large assets, no way they're going to pay me a buyer's commission. And he's like, dude, I do it all the time. Right?
Yeah.
So we very much build in a buyer's commission rather than do an acquisition fee. So most of it's covered by the loan and, only a small percentage of it's covered by our investors. And we do self-manage the properties. I believe we charge an 8% management fee, which ultimately that is just break even. Like my PM company is a loss leader. We don't really make money on that, but it helps me get money in other areas of my business.
Well, still, and it also helps you maintain control and you're not subject to third party and other variables. And when I would say, even if it's a break even, as long as it's not a deficit, if it's breaking even, you're still coming out ahead for the purposes of just maintaining control over your project, because time is money and stuff like that.
Even if it costs me $1,000 or $2,000 out of my pocket every month, it literally gives me back 40 to 60 to 80 hours. That's worth it to me all day, every day. And I can utilize that time to make way more money.
Yeah, that's just smart. You're just buying back your time right there. So, yeah, and it's a great point too. I wonder how the banks look at it, or the investors probably balk a little less if they see, a buyer agency, like a brokerage commission on a transaction is very normal, but it doesn't sting as much as an acquisition fee that the syndicator is charging, because sometimes you see that and you're like, well, all these syndicators are making all their money just off the fees, and that's why they don't care if they just got to hit the pref. But if you're doing the brokerage and treating that as a separate line item altogether, that you're actually going to deliver this deal to the syndicators, you're wearing different hats, then it doesn't sting as much. And it's a necessary evil, and it's absolutely built into the transaction regardless, so you might as well take advantage of it.
And the lender is actually supplementing the acquisition fee because they give you it's encompassed in the loan, versus an acquisition fee. It's on top, so the investors have to pay 100% of the acquisition fee.
Correct.
Right? So it also lessens the blow in that front, especially if we're projecting a 9 to 12% cash on cash return. Any less money they bring to the deal will only enhance the cash on cash return.
Yeah, so that actually makes your syndication more attractive than probably most, which is great. And that's cool because you can be generous to your investors while still taking care of yourself, because it is a fee that's earned. It's not like it's just free money. The acquisition fee or the buyer agency representation fee is still a service that's provided by a professional. So it's absolutely worth the money that it's costing.
And I think people fail to realize in the syndication model, like syndicators don't make money until near the end of the project, 3 to 5 years down the road. You're planting a seed and you're expecting a tree to grow down the road, but I don't make money in the interim. So those acquisition fees keep my team running, but for me to keep bringing more deals to my investors, right? So, ultimately it's like, to be frank, I'm not really making much money in the acquisition fee. It just allows me to keep my team well compensated to keep bringing more deal flow to my investors.
Correct. And that's how it goes. And that speaks again to what we were talking about earlier, where it's investment. Investments take time. You're planting, and then you plant, you step over it to the next field, you plant, and then by the time you get down to the end, you look back and now you've got a growth behind you. And that's how this game works. It's a long-term horizon strategy. And when the syndicators, do you guys put money into your own projects as well?
We typically sometimes do, but most of the time we do not put money into our own deals. We do personally guarantee all the loans, so we do recourse debt. So our net worth is on the line to ensure these deals do come to fruition.
Gotcha. That's important too. And I think that's something that people should consider when they're figuring out who to invest with, because that shows that you guys do still have skin in the game. Because if it was all non-recourse debt and it was all none of your money, then sometimes if there's unscrupulous actors out there, someone can get hurt. So the fact that you guys do have a lot of skin in the game, because if you're guaranteeing these things, that's big time commitment into the project. So that's awesome. So right now, we talked earlier that you're definitely a huge fan, a huge student continually. What podcasts are you listening to now, and what books are you reading, and who do you follow that's giving you inspiration daily?
So I do love the All In podcast. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's one of the top podcasts right now. And it's literally like the people who built Google, Facebook, what's that one Elon Musk created? PayPal, right? Like these people who are at the top of their game, they talk about investing, and they talk about the concepts they utilize was thinking about how to invest, and it's absolutely mind blowing. I love it. Can't get enough of it.
Awesome.
Ken McElroy. I love listening to Ken McElroy's podcast. He's a big syndicator with over 10,000 doors. Very smart investor. Been in the game for 20, 30 years. And then the other person I listen to is, what's his name? I'll get back to you on that. Just
Okay.
My mind. But those are definitely some podcasts that I listen to. Regarding some books that I'm reading, it's very much on growing my business. So one of the books I'm reading is called Traction, and that's utilizing the entrepreneur operating system and how to run your organization.
Is that Wickman?
Yep. Yeah. So just like how, each individually, we come up with our own 1 year, 5 year, 10-year goals and the metrics and how we make it there. I mean, if you're in high level masterminds, that's common practice. It's essentially doing that, but for your business, right? And then distilling it down to a per employee basis and how their metrics can feed into the overarching goals of the organization's vision over 1 year, 5 year, and 10-year goal. So that's instrumental. And one really big tool that has been instrumental to me building such an all-star team is utilizing what's called the cultural index, which is a personality test, and kind of understanding where people's superpowers are and how or how not are they utilizing that in the workplace, and how you can jigger them around in the right roles to get the best out of them. And when you're hiring somebody with the correct genius to excel at that role. And I found absolute all-stars that do 2 to 3 times the amount of work of a normal person by utilizing these tools.
Yeah, it's so important, man, to have the people on the right seat in the bus, because hiring and leading and managing is a totally separate skill set from being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, being an operator. So the fact that you're employing EOS, I think, is great. I know that's a system that I just discovered a couple of years ago, and we implement it in our GoPod meetings. And I love that. For that respect, I can see how our team is not. I don't know if we're too small for it right now to implement it and really maximize the benefits of it, but I follow that model, and it's definitely proven with results. I know there's a couple implementers in GoBundance as well. Did you get hooked up with that program through that, or were you already kind of onto that before?
I was kind of onto that before because, as you know, at every one of these GoBundance events, EOS comes up in one form or another.
People love it or hate it, it seems like. There's no in between.
I've only seen people who love it. I haven't really run across anybody who hated it.
Yeah.
But, it's just, I just see these uber successful people, and I literally just so being successful is not rocket science. It's literally just seeing what other people do and freaking copy it. Right? And I see all these super successful people utilize EOS, utilize the cultural index, utilize these strategies, and then the business thrives. And so, I mean, I'm just following the lead. I'm just following what other people are doing. That's simple as that.
Yeah, dude, we're not reinventing the wheel or curing cancer here. It's like you got mindset, skill set, habits, and then you find someone who's doing what you want to do, and you just copy them, and you'll get to where they're going if you're willing to put in the work. It's that simple.
Exactly. Totally.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what do you think? I want to talk about the real estate business kind of landscape and market. We got a few minutes left here. Where do you see the biggest opportunities and also the biggest risks in today's market, and what should new entrepreneurs be focusing on?
I think the biggest opportunities, in my opinion, are tertiary markets outside of high growth cities with a large concentration of multifamily with a relatively high cap rate. That's going to protect you against these high interest rates in the long run. And that's also going to allow you to target, a lot of deals, because there's a lot of the asset you're looking for in one given market. It's easier to find that deal. And I think the high risk areas, in my opinion, are these really low cap rate areas where your debt service coverage ratio doesn't make any sense anymore. And you have to come in, 40, 50, 60% LTV just to make the debt service coverage ratio work. And by the way, you're making no cash flow on that money. It's purely just a place to park your money, right? So, I think playing in the high cap rate market, strong multifamily is the right play. And I think, playing in the low cap rate market, if your plan is to buy and hold, is absolutely the wrong play. I mean, if your plan's development or create forced appreciation, I can understand that in a low cap rate market, but I cannot understand, the buy and hold strategy other than it just being purely an appreciation play.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I think the low cap markets are where if you just got obscene amounts of cash and you want to play in those markets, and maybe you'll have appreciation, park the money there. But yeah, you've got to put down so much capital to get into these projects to make them remotely close to penciling out, that it's not a play where it's going to be maybe like if in a slow market when you can't find things to buy, that's where you go to do those things, just if you need to continue to play the game. And then we talked about earlier, that's where you lean heavily on factoring in some of the tax benefits into your underwriting, because while you might not make cash flow or you might not be able to force any appreciation, you may get some major cost segregation benefits that may just make the numbers work for you if you have to. It's if for folks that have to buy, if they have exchanges or something like that. But what
and what I will say is, at least in my market, all the people I've seen who've got up to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of units started in higher cap rate markets, and maybe they transitioned to lower cap rate markets once they had a decent net worth. But I am not seeing people scale to the level that I have in a very low cap rate market. It's almost impossible with the level of cash flow that you receive.
Yeah. And my market is kind of a small southeastern coastal market. We don't have a lot of multifamily here because we're geographically pretty small, but we're probably like a 6.5 to 7 cap range right now for something like that. So,
and I think your goal is probably to buy something where you can make it into a 9 or 10 cap once you're done with your business plan.
So what markets do you mostly play in your own backyard, or are there markets, some of these tertiary markets that you mentioned that you like, or you know folks that are investing in that are seeing success?
Absolutely. So, I like to target markets with a high concentration of multifamily, right? So there's certain markets in my area that have a lot of multifamily. Providence, Rhode Island, Manchester, New Hampshire, Worcester, Massachusetts, which is my main market. I host one of the largest real estate meetups in here. 30 to 40% of the housing stock is multifamily.
Really?
Yes. So I specifically target these cities with a ton of multifamily. And at least in the Northeast, it's pretty easy to figure that out. And that mostly is these old mill towns that built a ton of workforce housing between 1880 and 1920. So most of my multifamilies are over 100 years old. But, you play with the stock you're going to get, right? And ultimately, I could buy a new multifamily, but it's going to cost me 3 to 4x the cost due to reconstruction, right? Or I can buy one of these 100-year-old multis where the roof has been done 5 times over, the windows have been done 5 times over, the electric has been done 5 times over, the foundation has been shoot up 3 times, right? I mean, at that stage, you're literally just assessing the age of the CapEx because, these things were built incredibly well. So, I don't know if that answers your question, but that was just...
Well, no, it does. You mentioned a couple markets there, and in Manchester, I'd never been to Manchester. I was up there a couple months ago, and what a cool town that is, man. It seems like and I would say a lot of times these, tertiary kind of by definition isn't exactly the hottest place to be, but if they are still geographically centered in bigger MSAs, then they still get some of the benefit. Like Manchester, I believe, is kind of almost becoming like a suburban portion of Boston at this point, and then it triangulates with New York Metro. So it's like people are still going there.
Yeah, and I think in New Hampshire alone, I believe the vacancy rate is 0.5%. So it's an incredibly desirable place to live. And at least in my markets, like finding renters is literally the easiest thing in the world. The demand for housing is so large in Massachusetts and New England. And that's primarily because there's so much regulation here. It's hard to build new stuff. So as a result, the older stuff is in high demand, right? And the newer stuff, a lot of times the numbers don't make sense. So you're paying, 1.5 to 2x for the same sort of bedroom count unit. So yeah, I to your point, I think a lot of these cities around Boston have a lot of growth potential for sure.
That's awesome, man. It sounds like you're in a great spot and doing a lot of great things. So I'm stoked for you, dude. Some final thoughts and wisdom. You've been at this for 4 years. Sounds like very hard, running wide open. If you could turn back the clock, other than buying Bitcoin, what would you do or tell yourself if you had to give yourself a little bit of advice, try and accelerate the process, or are you like kind of your trajectory right now?
I would say, I would tell myself to face my fears earlier. Ultimately, the only thing holding us back is our fears, right? And if we don't come face to face with the childhood trauma or the fears that we face, we're ultimately not going to reach our ultimate potential. So, I tell people all the time, to truly be comfortable with risk, you have to be comfortable with fear, and you have to get over the fear that you experienced younger, as well as any fear you experience in the future.
Sage wisdom from Andrew Freed. I love it, man. I love it. Well, listen, man, I can't thank you enough for your time today. Where can we go to find you, learn more about you, connect with you, and so we can support you on your journey?
Thank you for inviting me. You can find me at Investor Freed on Instagram or Andrew Freed on Facebook or LinkedIn. I am very active on social. I'm always trying to provide value. So feel free to give me a follow.
Awesome, man. Well, folks, you heard it here first. Mr. Andrew Freed building a tremendous real estate empire up in Worcester. We want to thank you again for coming, and we'll see you next time on the Build Better Blueprint.
That's it, folks. That's our show. Thanks as always for listening. If you enjoyed today's discussion, please leave us a 5-star rating and subscribe to our channel so you are up to date with the latest episodes. Feel free to share with your friends and keep up the great work. You are on the right path. See you at the top.